Hello, everybody, and today we will be making a tier list of every single block in Buildable for Treasure. Now, this isn't exactly every single block. There will be a few event blocks that we will be skipping, like eggs and presents that got turned into their reward once the event was over. I also cannot really cover the blocks that I do not own, like the laser turret or the steampunk jetpack. Um, but other than that, we're going to start doing this in alphabetical order. So first up, I gotta switch over my camera here. Give me a moment. First up, we have the first place trophy. Now, let me grab that here. Trophy. It's very bright, I must say. Like, I could have made the gold a little bit less glowy, if you know what I mean. What if I turn on night? Daylight. Yeah, even when it's night, it's still very brightly colored. Um, I mean, it does feel kind of rewarding to have this first place trophy. Um, I mean, I have 18 and 19 of them, almost 20. But I mean, you won that competition fair and square, unless you used the butter glitch. So, yeah, I'd say that this here is a solid B tier. Now, next up, we have the second place trophy. So let's grab that here and turn night mode back off. Honestly, I think this one looks better than the first place trophy. It's a lot cleaner. I like the black pedestal, and it's more readable too, the words. But I mean, it is still a second place trophy, so you didn't win that competition. So I think we can put this in a solid C tier. Next up, we have the third place trophy. Now, this block also looks pretty good. I'd say I'd say it's not as good as the other two. I do like the brown pedestal, but I mean, it is a third place trophy. I mean, it's kind of disappointing to look at, you know. So we'll put this one in the D tier. Now, next up, we have the back cookie wheel. Let me just look up here. Now, this wheel, I mean, it's a good size. You know, if you're making like a large vehicle that doesn't necessarily need a huge wheel, you could use this. I really don't like the design though. Like, would you really want to be driving around in a car that has candy as the wheels? But you can paint it and you can make it all one color. And then if you wanted, you could build your own design inside. So I think that kind of makes up for the bad looks of it. Um, Overall, it does its job as a wheel pretty well. And I would put this in C tier. Next up, we have the back cookie wheel, which slightly bigger than the candy one, as you can see. Um, it looks rounder as well, which makes it better for something that you want to have look really detailed. Although the texture on it is kind of dirty. Like it's not like a solid round texture like a candy wheel is. Like you see how this is just a pattern. This is just kind of little crumbles all over the design. But you can paint it and design your own wheel over it, just like the other ones. So, um, but because of the bad design, I'm gonna have to put this one in D tier. Now, next up, we have the regular back wheel. Now, oh my God, it's loading forever. This one is, I gotta say, my favorite out of the three that we've seen so far, because it looks the most like a wheel, you know. Um, and while it's not as big as the others, I find more use for this, especially in tanks, um, which you want smaller wheels than those because it's just pulling the treads around. But yeah, small cars and tanks, you can use this wheel and it looks pretty good even on detailed builds. So I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Next up, we have the balloon. Now, these blocks are kind of unique in how they work. Like, the balloon slowly goes up instead of like going up like at whatever speed it can. Um, the physics are kind of janky with it. Like if I try and levitate this wooden box, here real quick, you'll see that two balloons can't lift it, right? But the moment you take one balloon, oh God, no, I just want the balloon. I don't want the ball. Dee 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 dee. You take one balloon and you scale it up to two, and suddenly that makes it strong enough to lift the whole thing. I don't know why. I don't know why it does that. So their balloons are kind of broken, and if they were not broken like that, I would have probably put them in B tier, but because of that bug, I'm gonna put them in C tier. Next up, we have the bar. So we will make a little thing right here to place it on. Now, I must say, this is one of my favorite additions to Buildable for Treasure in recent times because it enables a lot of pretty advanced mechanisms if you know how to use it correctly. For example, if you have a wall and you want to have something that can turn through that wall, what you can do is take one of these bars and set the angle limit to 0, and then you'll see if I put a wheel on it, and I turn the anchor off for all of these, you'll see we can spin something through a wall, which is really useful for when you want to make compact mechanisms. So it's also useful for other things, but we don't have that much time, so I'm just going to put this straight in A tier. Next up, we have the big cannon. Let's put that up here. Now, I feel like this block has potential. It, it would have been so much better, in my opinion, if you could control it with a seat. Sit in the seat and use a key to select the cannon, and then click wherever you want to shoot it. But it doesn't work like that, sadly. You have to sit inside of the cannon, and you can fire there, which it has a pretty good fire rate, but the problem with it is that it's lagging really bad. Come on. The problem with it is that it only has 5 shots, so you can only use your one cannon 5 times, and then you have to get another one. It used to be infinite ammo, but not anymore. So I think this one's going in D tier. Next up, we have the switch, or the big switch, I mean. I don't really have much to say about this one. It's a switch. It does its job of activating things like, I don't know, TNT. But I really like the way it looks, honestly. Like, if you compare it to the other switches, which don't really have that much detail, it looks really good. Like, if you're using it in a detailed build, you would definitely want this over this. unless you were having like light switches in the build, you would probably want something more simple. And this lever, I mean, it looks good for certain uses, but I honestly like this switch over most of the other ones. So with that, I'm going to put this in B tier. Now, next up, we have the blue candy. And what the blue candy does is it makes you shrink, which is pretty useful if you have a small build that you wanted to use where you can't fit through normally. That's still too big. But with a small candy, you can fit in it. Like if you have a missile that you want to sit inside to control, you can use the blue candy to turn small. But it also has another feature where you can actually select the different sizes. So, like if I want my head to stay the regular size, the other things to change, you can do silly stuff like this. It's not really practical, but you can do it. So, anyways, I think that this one, I don't really see much use for it other than going in small builds. Um, it does its job, so I think we'll go with C tier. Next up, we have the boat motor. And here is it. Here it is. Actually, let me fix my size real quick. Please stop lagging. I have a video to make. There we go. So the boat motor does exactly what you think it does. It is a motor for your boat. And early on in the game, it's a lot better early on in the game because you don't have that many blocks. Oh, my chair did not move. So you have light things like wood that your boat is made out of, so you can move pretty easily with it. The turn ratio kind of sucks, but it does its job. But my problem with the boat motor is that when you have something heavier, like a large boat or whatever, and you try and use the boat motor, you'll see that, let me in the chair. We just can't. You can't use the boat motor at all. And even if I try adding more, where did it go? I forgot where it is in here. Even if you add more, like I'll put all my boat motors that I have down on here. See, it took 5 boat motors to move this thing. 4, 3, 2? Yeah, 2 boat motors can barely move it. Um, and this is a pretty small block. If you had like a really large ship, you would need tons of these. So it's also really kind of janky the way it works. Like it can work in the air as well as on the ground, and if your boat starts to flip over, it acts really weird. So overall, I don't think this is going very high. I'm going to put this in E tier. Now, next up, we have the bouncy block. It does exactly what you'd think it does. Um, Please stop lagging. I'm trying to do something. It bounces. It's pretty fun to play around with. I've never really found a practical use for this. Um, like, I don't really know. Like, what would you use a bouncy block for? I can't really imagine anything in real life that you would want to bounce other than a toy. I mean, it could be fun to make a sphere out of these things and run around in a big bouncy sphere, but overall, since this thing just doesn't have that much use, I'm gonna just put it in D tier. Now, next up, we have the boxing glove right here. And see, if you have a player in front of the boxing glove, and you click on it, I said, if you click on it, it launches the player. This is a pretty fun block to mess around with. I like trolling sometimes with it. Go up to someone, you punch them into outer space, and then you run away. But my only problem with it is that it doesn't work on blocks. As you'll see here, it just kind of makes the block budge up a bit, which is disappointing. So, since this is it's a fun block to mess around with, but not really useful, I'm gonna put this in E tier. Next up, we have bread, which has one strength. Um, it doesn't do anything. It's just a decoration block. You can't even eat it. But it's only people who have been playing a long time have this block because it was in an event, and you don't see it very often nowadays. In fact, I just saw someone the other day who had a helicopter made out of bread. I thought that was kind of funny. But it's I don't really know what you'd use this for. I guess it could make a good looking raft. What if I color it brown? Like, yeah, you can make something with an interesting texture using these, but also it's bread. Who doesn't like bread? I've been teleporting bread for 10 days. Anyways, um, I guess, this one's a hard one. D tier. Next up, we have bricks. And bricks don't seem very useful at first. Um, like maybe into like a house kind of build, you can make it with some bricks, but they actually have a secret use. You see, bricks have more friction than other blocks, or other blocks that are in this material category at least. And I will show you with a magnet. You'll see when I launch it with this magnet, it should slow down. Um, as I was saying, if I launch it with a magnet, it should slow down. It's lagging so bad, I can't click on the magnet. Forget it. I'll just I'll just put it on a slope. How about that? I can't click on anything because of this lag. Holy crap. Nana, turn the TV off. Let's compare it to some other blocks on a slope. So we'll put a brick, we'll put a gold, we'll put an ice, put an obsidian. Said we'll put an obsidian, and we'll put a wood. Now, let's see what happens when we move these all up. Well, that went too fast for me to actually see what was going on, but anyways, just believe in me. The bricks have more friction, and it makes the bricks useful for making cars and tanks that you want to have custom wheels on. You can give them more friction with a brick. So because of that use, I had to put this in B tier. Now, next up, we have a stack of potions. I forget what it's called exactly. Oh, it's just called potions. So this is a PvP item. I don't have anyone else to test this on, but basically this one, you throw it at someone and it puts them in a block of ice until they spam space to get out. This one, if it would let me pick it up, stop lagging. Okay, it picked up all of them. This one would set people on fire. Um, this one will make them dance, and that's stupidly loud. And this one would make them follow you. I don't really know what use you'd have that for, but anyways, it's kind of a quirky item, and I never really see anyone use it, so I'm gonna have to put this in E tier. Next up, we have the button. Where's the button? Here it is. The button, you click on it, and it'll activate things while you hold it down. And I'll show you, like with this piston. When you hold down the button, the piston goes out, and when you release it, it goes back in, which makes it unique compared to all the switches and levers that we have in the game. The design is what the heck? Anyways, the design is kind of simple. Um, I honestly like it, but for some people, they might want something that looks a little better. So for this one, we're going to put it in C tier, right below the big switch. Next up, we have the cake block. You not. Now, at first, it just might seem like a silly little decoration. But oh no, this is one of the most important blocks in the game. You want to know why? Well, guess what? You flap down a seat, put a cake in your body, and there we go. And it gets stuck to you. And it doesn't move. You'll see how my body is leaning forwards. It doesn't lean forwards or backwards at all. It stays completely straight, which makes this extremely useful for when people build mechs or things that they want to control with their body. Like you could do something with this. You could throw a thruster down. Um, hello? There we go. You could run around with this thruster on your body if you wanted. And that's just one example. There's like a million things you could do with this. I see people use it all the time for different things. So, because of that use, this has to go in B tier. Next up, we have the camera here. And what the camera does is it falls off of the wall, apparently. Okay. Camera does is it lets you look through it, and then you see our character is not connected to the camera. Um, this is pretty good if you want like a house with security systems, or if you want to take like cinematic shots of something. The only problem though is this giant overlay on the screen with this exit button here. It really sucks trying to record things with this because it just takes up all of the screen. It looks terrible having this over your screen. Um, so I feel like I would have put this in a higher tier if it weren't for that overlay. So I just have to put this in E tier, honestly. Next up, we have the candy cane block, which I do not actually own any of. So this one, we're just gonna have to put in the question mark tier. Next up is the dual candy cane harpoon. Where is that? There it is. And what this harpoon does is it lets you attach to two things at once. So you see, we can grab that wood block and that wood block, and we can pull both of them in. But I don't really see much of a practical use for this. Um, it does last forever, which is a nice quirk, but you get that same thing with gold harpoons. And the thing is, with gold harpoons, you can select two, just like that, and then you can pull them in at different times if you want. So it's kind of just two harpoons in one. I don't really see much of a use for it, and it doesn't really look that good either. Like, I don't really, I think you can paint it. It looks better once it's painted, but then it loses all the detail. So, this one, I'm gonna have to stick in E tier. Next up, we have the, sorry, I forgot where I was. Candy cane pole. Yeah, this is another block that I don't have, so that's in question mark tier. Next up is the cannon. Um, Now this is one of the older PvP blocks. Not older, the oldest PvP block. Simply click on it, click where you want to shoot, and it shoots. And unlike the big cannon that we looked at earlier, this one actually has infinite ammo. It just takes a long time to reload. And what you can do with it is you can turn the aiming function off so that when you activate it, it'll only fire in that one direction it's already pointing in, which makes it useful for when you want to have, say, a bunch of cannons in a row, or you can move the cannons together with a moving tool like that. And then, if you turn the aim off, you can use a switch or a chair to fire them all. You can add delays between them as well to make cannon miniguns. Oh, I forgot that camera was still there. Let's wait for that to reload real quick. And you see, you can fire all the cannons at once. And if you use delay blocks, you could slow it down. And it makes a really great weapon. And because of that, I had to put it in A tier. Next up is the car seat. Now, this block is honestly game-changing. Imagine, what would you do in BABFT without a car seat or a pilot seat? You wouldn't be able to control things nearly as well as you can nowadays. Because with the binding tool, you can... Let me find something to use this with. So with the binding tool, you can bind anything to any key on your keyboard, like this, and you can control a whole lot of things at once. You'll see here, like I can press all these different buttons to activate these different lights. And just imagine that being all different mechanisms in your vehicle. If we didn't have this car seat, you'd have to use all buttons and switches to control everything, which would be a big pain, and it also wouldn't let you zoom out, because when you zoom out, you can't really manipulate your controls. You can zoom in to flick everything around. So this block I have to put into S tier. Now next up we have the chair, I think it's called. Is it chair or seat? It's chair. Um, it's a chair, you know. I like this one out of all the seats the most because it's really compact, unlike Throne, which takes up a whole ton of space. It has 4 durability, so it's not as strong, but I like the chair. I always use this in my builds when I need seating for other people. I always use chairs. I don't use thrones or regular seats. Unless I make custom seats, I might use a regular seat. So this one is going in A tier. Now next up we have the classic firework. It's firework. It does what you expect. Oh, well, I failed horribly at trying to view that. It makes a little firework explosion. This block was also used as a grinder back in the old days because you could attach it to your body somehow. I've heard people say that if you sit in a chair and then place a firework on your body, you can get it to attach nowadays still. Let's see if that works or not. Doesn't look like it's working. Oh, wait. No, we got it to attach. So yeah, you could still make a grinder with this. I think it works just like the cake block, in the way that it doesn't tilt, even though your character does tilt. So the only problem is when you launch it, it falls off your body, so people control you and disconnect you from your machines. So this one, we're going to put one below the cake in C tier. Next up, we have the coal block right here. And this is a 5 strength durability material block that you got from a Christmas event. Actually, is it still? I think you can still buy it in the... Yeah, you can buy it in the shop still. But I really like this because the texture, I really like the texture on it. It might be the same as the concrete. I No, it's not the same as the concrete. Yeah, this is one of my favorite textures in the game, and I use it a lot. on my builds for like a kind of metal looking texture when I don't want to use titanium or this metal. So in the 5 durability, it's not the best, but it's durable enough when you use a lot of it. So this block I am going to put in B tier. And next up, we have the common chest. This chest block is, well, pretty common. I think let me check the chances of getting it in here. What's inside? 1% chance of getting it. So yeah, you would only have to spend about 500 gold on common chests to end up with one of these blocks. Though, um, can be painted. It paints the whole thing, so you can't make it look like the other chests. You can't forge a legendary chest, unfortunately. It would be funny if you could be like, oh, look, I have a legendary chest block. But yeah, um, common chest block is, it's just what it says. It's a common chest block. Um, I don't really see any use for it, so I'm going to put it in E tier. Now, next up, we have the concrete that I just mentioned earlier. This is also 5 strength, like the coal. Um, the texture, I don't like the texture as much as the coal. Um, it looks more like, well, concrete, just like it says. But I don't really see a use for concrete in most builds when we're making vehicles. I don't build structures that often. Um, see if we paint it a different color, we can get it to look different. I'm trying to find a color that brings out the texture a lot. Yeah, you can see the texture with this one pretty well. Um, I mean, it's a useful block when you're earlier on in the game, to get a 5 durability block. But once you're later in the game, it's not as useful anymore. So I'm going to put this one below the coal in C tier. Actually, no, we're putting it in D tier. Next up is the concrete rod. Um, it's the same thing as the concrete, except it's slightly lighter for some reason, and you cannot scale it. Like with the concrete, you can make it any size you want, which if you wanted to, you could just make a concrete rod out of the concrete. These rods were added before the scale tool was in the game, so rods aren't useful anymore. That's why you don't see rod variants of new blocks like coal. Um, yeah, you can't even tell a difference between the two once you paint them, but this is the real one here. Um, since you can't scale it, there's not much use in using this, so we're going to put it below that in F tier. Next up, we have the heck is that? Anyways, next up we have the corner wedge. Um, this was added in the game before we had things like the moving tool, where you could move things wherever you want. So that was when we had to make things out of wedges and solid blocks to have slopes. Unfortunately, it's not the same color as the regular wood for some reason. So if you were using one of these and you wanted it to look the same, you would have to get the paint tool to make them all the same color. But, I mean, it looks pretty clean in builds. You're not worrying about having janky corners with like 100 blocks because it's hard to make a triangle out of squares. So, since it's more useful than the concrete rod, I'm going to put it in E tier. Next up, we have the delay block. Here it is. And this block, it lets you add delay to inputs. So I'll show you a little example here. See if we put a switch and we bind the switch to this, you'll see it comes with a 1-second delay by default. Now, this is pretty useful for when you want to have a mechanism that's constantly moving on its own. Um, my problem with it though is that when you want to bind a chair to something, like say, we'll use a wheel for this. Say you want to bind a chair to this wheel through the delay block. There's no way to actually select which key you're using for it. So you see, if I press these buttons to turn the wheel, it's not responding properly. I'm trying to go backwards and forwards and it's taking, you see now it's stuck at that angle. It's just, it really does not work well with the seat. If you have something like a cannon that only has one button, you'll notice we can't change the button that we use for it, since we can't change what button we use to connect to the timer block or the delay block. So it's always going to be the default keybind for the cannon, which is F, which makes the delay block kind of... See, I'm pressing F and it won't even select the cannon. So it just doesn't really work well with the seats. I feel like it would be better if you could bind it to a certain letter. So I'm going to put this one in D tier because it has its uses. It's just a little broken. Next up, we have the dome camera. And this is a lot like the regular camera, except it acts like a player. So you can move your camera around with it, zoom in and out, and yeah, you can do those things. Um, it's a little better than the other camera in the fact that you can move around, but also in the fact that this thing is off in the corner. So if you were recording something, you could potentially edit this out if it was something small in the middle of your screen, or if you had like a really big screen, you could get high resolution in just a small area. But this is really good for making remote controlled cars and stuff. So this camera I am going to have to put in C tier. Next up, we have the door. Can you guys guess what the door does? That's right. It opens! Wow! So yeah, it's a door. Um, it only has 4 durability, so don't go trying to ram your way through the river with this thing. But it looks really good. I mean, it does its job as a door. And see, if I want to flip it over, you can make the details up there if you wanted. And you can paint it, of course. So you could make something like you can make it look like a metal door, although the wood texture doesn't look that much like metal. Because you could pretend it's like Damascus or whatever, but yeah, it's a door. Um, we'll say C tier. Now, next up is the dragon's egg. Um, this this is just a decoration block. I got it from some event. I think like it like hatched into something, but then it also stayed in my inventory for some reason. So, um, I don't really know what the purpose of this is. I don't see any reason you would ever want to place this in a build and paint it, I guess. So, yeah, this one's going in F tier. Now, next up we have the dragon harpoon. Where is it? And the dragon harpoon is a lot like the gold harpoon in the fact that it has infinite time on its harpoon, but it also has a special ability. You see, if I shoot it at me while I'm walking around, did you see how it turns there? Actually, it'll be easier to see if I grab a pink candy, so that I'm faster now. You see that it curves to go towards whatever it's aimed at, which makes it really useful for capturing moving players or boats. Um, or like if you accidentally launch your boat, or someone launches your boat and you have to pull it back, you can use this to grab it. Um, But my only problem with it is that I don't like the design. Like these wings just they look kind of stupid and it makes it take up more space. So I'm gonna actually put this below. No, I haven't done the golden harpoon yet, so we'll put it with the candy cane one. Our golden harpoon is gonna be above that. Next up, we have dynamite. And dynamite does just what you'd expect it to. When you activate it, it explodes. Amazing, isn't it? Um, this is useful in PvP because we have PvP mode on and it touches an enemy player's block who also has PvP mode on. It'll automatically explode, which where was I going with that? Makes it useful for like I'd see people make swords out of it before we had the spike block. But now that we have the spike block, it's just used as a bomb. And I have made a nuke with like a ton of these. I made a sphere out of these and um it it launches people so far that they get thrown out of the map and have to respawn, which makes it fun to mess around with. Um, so yeah, this one I'm gonna put in A tier. Next up, we have the Easter Jetpack. Um, it's an equipable item that lets you fly up, and you see this little fuel meter here. That measures how much fuel you have left in it. I'm pretty sure there's a limit to how high you can go. Yeah, right there is the highest you can go. No, seriously, when would you really need to go any higher than this? And I believe that it runs out of fuel eventually, but I think it's bugged. I think when it runs out of fuel, it just keeps working anyways. So yeah, every time you hit spacebar, it goes down. It's not when you hold spacebar. So we're gonna make this run out of fuel and see if it actually stops. Yeah, see, it's still going. So it's just an infinite jetpack apparently. So this one, I'm gonna have to put it in D tier. Actually, no. Change my mind. C tier. Next up, we have the egg cannon, I think it's called. And it doesn't shoot eggs like the other cannon. Instead, it shoots you in an egg, which I think is a pretty fun block to mess around with. Like, if you want to get around a build quickly, you can have some cannons around, launch yourself over, and you control whenever you want to get out of the egg. So, like, I can shoot myself up in the air, jump out, and land wherever I want. Um, I think this is a really fun block. It also doesn't look too bad like some of the other specialty blocks do. So this one, I am going to have to put in A tier. Next up, we have the Epic Chest block. It's almost exactly like the common chest block, except it's blue. But let's see. No, that's not the one I wanted. It's inside. 0.3% chance from 135 gold. Let me do some math real quick. So that's 45,000 gold? You have to spend 45,000 gold to get one epic chest block. And that's assuming that you're moderately lucky. Um, I'm surprised I even have one. So yeah, I didn't realize how rare that was actually. So I'm gonna put this one in B tier. Next up, we have the candle. Um, Candle is a lighting block that lights up a small area. I believe it's the second strongest in the game. You see the torch only makes that much light, but the lamp makes a lot more. Um, it makes a good decoration, like if you have a little table, for example, and you want something to put on it, you can slap down a candle, and it looks pretty good. I really like the design of it. Um, Simplistic. Feel like the particles could have been changed to something else, but overall, it's a pretty good lighting block. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Now, next up, we have the fabric block, and this is a material block with only one strength. Um, I find myself using this more often than I'd expect. Um, it makes a good carpet material. So when you want to have a build with like carpets in it, you know, or a fancy red carpet, let's do that. Walking down the red carpet. Um, it's also good for making like a canvas roof or sails on a boat. Oh, I did not realize I had anchor off. So yeah, it's a good block. I'd put this in C tier at least. It could be higher if it had more durability. Next up, we have Firework 1. I don't think I actually have this. Check. Yeah, no, I don't have this one. It's this one with a spiral design on it, you see right here. So since I don't have that, it's going in question mark tier. Next up, we have Firework 2. Um, I have no clue what this actually looks like, so let's find out together. Oh, that's kind of pretty. Can you paint it red? Make it a different color? Oh, you can. That's pretty neat. So, yeah. I don't think you can do the firework glitch with these modern ones. Actually, I'm almost certain you can't. We'll give it a shot anyways. Yeah, no, you can't. But I really like the way it looks. My only problem with this is that people can lag your game by spamming a whole ton of these, just like all the other fireworks. So you see if I do that, and that activates them all. Okay, well, I expected my frame rate to go down, but it didn't because my computer is awesome. But yeah, that's the firework. I am going to put this one in B tier. I like it. Next up, we have Firework 3, which is this one. Now, let's see how this one looks. I don't really like that one as much. Yeah, I don't like that. I didn't really see like anything flying out, so it just kind of felt like it was all made up. Um, yeah, like the other ones, you could lag people's games with these. Um, if you had a bunch of them, which I don't, so I'm gonna stick this in D tier. Next up is Firework 4. And let's see what this one looks like. Ooh. I like that one. You could actually see the other little things going out, unlike the other one. Um, would I say it's better than Firework 2? Honestly, yeah, I like that better than Firework 2. So we're gonna take this one and we're gonna put it in A tier. Now, next up, we have, I think it's called the flag or the mast. It's called the flag. Um, this is not really useful. It doesn't do anything special. Um, think you can paint, when you paint it, you just paint the flag, so that's kind of good. Um, Unless you wanted to paint the mast of it. Um, but the brick texture on here just doesn't fit. The design, I feel like it could have been made wider. Um, and it only has 2 durability, so it's not even strong. So I'd say this is an F tier. I never see anyone use it because it just doesn't fit in builds. So anyways, now we're getting onto the front wheels. Front front wheel. Now this is exactly what you think it is. It's the candy wheel, but steerable. See? Um, yeah. I already went over all the details about the candy wheel, like how you can paint it and make your own custom wheel if you want. So I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna put it in the same tier as the candy wheel, C tier. Next up, we have the front cookie wheel. It's just like the other ones. It's a front wheel that you can turn back and forth. Um, don't really have much to say about it. You can paint it, make your own wheel if you want. But yeah, that's going in the same place as the cookie wheel, D tier. Next up, we have the front wheel, just the regular one. And it does just like the other ones, turns back and forth and spins. Not much to say about it. So that is going with the back wheel in B tier. Next up, we have this game board thing. Um, it lets you click on it to play tic-tac-toe, I guess. Or you click, or do you jump? Oh, you have to step on the tile you want. And then you need another player to come in and do the other tiles, so I can't really play with myself. Um, it doesn't give you any rewards or anything when you win or if you lose, so I never see this used because there's no point. Who comes to Buildable for Treasure to play tic-tac-toe, am I right? So this is going in F tier. Next up is the glass block. I forgot I need to turn night mode back off. It's a block of glass that you can see through. It only has 1 durability, so it's not that great, but does its job. You know, you make large windows and it'll be stronger. But me personally, what I do is I actually make my windows out of gold, and I use the dropper to steal the color from the glass, and then I make it 50% transparent. And it looks exactly the same, except it's heavier and has more durability. So, um, so if you don't have the tools or the amount of gold to make that, this is probably a higher tier for you. But for me, I'm gonna put this in C tier because of the lesser durability. Oh, hold on, I gotta adjust these settings because it's getting a little big now. One moment. Where's my scroll bar? I don't see my scroll bar. Okay, we're back in business. No, I don't want to select that. Next up is the glue block. It used to be called butter, so I'm used to calling it butter. Um, what it does is it lets you activate it, and it vanishes. Uh, this is this is not the main use for it though. People mainly use it to attach things to their body. To see there, your hands and legs and stuff will get stuck in glue if you place it, which people use to make their own mechs and stuff. Because what they'll do is they'll line up a block with their arm or whatever. I'll use 0 scale to do this. So that's, oh, the anchor was off. Line this up with our arm. Now we move it by 2 over here. And you place the glue block. And then, I don't know, make yourself a little sword or something. Call this a wooden sword. And then anchor off with these. And look at that, you have a custom appendage now. It's lifting me off the ground every time my arm goes down. But yeah, the glue block is really useful for that. So this is gonna go in B tier. And I have to adjust these settings again. This is getting too big for me. All right. Now the gold block. This gold block has 9 durability, making it the strongest material block in the game. Um, it has a decent amount of weight to it, but I think it actually weighs less than obsidian. Let me test that real quickly. Spring, here it is. So we'll duplicate this spring right here. We'll see what happens when we anchor this off. It goes about that far down. And the obsidian does not go down at all because this is anchored. I'm pretty sure it's slightly lower. Let me turn the stiffness down to 5,000. And now you can see the obsidian is slightly lower, which means it is slightly heavier. So the gold block is extremely strong, and like I showed you earlier, you can make glass out of it by turning it like that, and it's not too heavy. So this block is going to be our second S tier. Next up is the golden harpoon. And I already showed this earlier, but it is a harpoon that you can shoot at an object or something, and does not have a time down, a cooldown like the regular harpoon does. As you'll see when we use this, it has 30 seconds that it'll remain attached. And does its job. You can attach it to something, pull it over, hold it wherever you want. Before we had rope blocks, people would use this to make trains or truck trailers and that kind of thing. But now that we have rope blocks, we don't really use the gold harpoon for that anymore. So it does have to go above these harpoons though. So we're going all the way up into B tier, actually. Great, now I got to adjust this again. This tier list is getting too big. Next up, we have the grass block. Um, it's exactly what you think it is. It's a block with the same texture as the grass. Um, it only has 1 durability, so you're not going to be using this as armor or anything. The texture isn't really useful for anything other than grass. Like, maybe you could use it as TV static if you had like a TV or something, but it's not that great of a block. I'm putting this one in E tier. Next up, we have the normal harpoon. It's just like all the other harpoons that we showed, except it has this 30-second cooldown. We'll just do this over here. That's a wood block, not a harpoon. And I can't move it. Why can't I move it? It's not anchored. Anyways, yeah, you get the point. The harpoon does its thing. It grabs things and pulls them towards it. But I had to put it in the same tier as the other harpoons, like the dragon and candy cane one, because those ones have their own problems. And yeah, next block. Now we're on to the hatch. This is basically the same thing as a door, except it opens downwards. I can, goddamn, move it, please. Yeah. You use this in conjunction with a ladder. Close that. Oh, we're gonna put this. You can make a pretty good way to get up and down from different layers of a ship. Overall, this block is pretty useful when you when you have like a small build or something. It has the same strength as a door, so not as useful as a door though. So I'm gonna put it one rank below in D tier. Now, next up, we have the heart block. Figure all this out. It's a heart. 1 durability, so you're not using this as armor. I'm pretty sure you can only get it from events. And seriously, what are you gonna use this for? Roblox dating? I don't know. You can paint it. Actually, I did use this for something a long time ago. I used it to make a wheel by duplicating a bunch of these. Chew! I think it was something like this. And you get the point. But you can make a wheel out of almost any block, so there's no point in using hearts for this. So yeah, since it's a pretty much useless block, I'm gonna put it in F tier. Next up, we have the helm. It is a little steering wheel that you can put on a boat. You know, let's slap down a throne. It doesn't actually do anything. I feel like it would be cool if they could take this block and make it like button or a switch. But yeah, it's just a decoration. How much durability does it have? It has 1 durability, so you're not using this as armor either. Um, but I could see people actually using it on their boat builds and stuff occasionally, so I'm putting this in E tier. Next up, we have the hinge right here. And the hinge is a lot like the wheel, except it's not powered. So when you have something on it, it'll just swing on its own. There we go. See, blocks will just swing around on the hinge as if it's an unpowered wheel. Now, this is extremely useful. It was almost game-changing when this block came out for building machines and stuff. And it's also used for a few glitches, like people call this the glue glitch, where you put a hinge on this thing. I'm sure you've seen it before. And then you can fly around like that. Um, but yeah, it's a really useful block for mechanisms. I had to put this in S tier. Next up, we have the giant back wheel. Apparently, it's just called back wheel. They're both called back wheel. That's weird. Um, my problem with this block is that it's too big. I don't really have that many builds that need wheels this big. Like, it's useful for a monster truck, but other than that, like, you can barely even build something in this area that's needs wheels like that. But when it comes down to it, though, it does its job as a wheel very well. It looks really good too. I gotta say, it's my favorite wheel design in the game. And it has 40 hit points, so you can actually drive through a lot of rocks with this thing if you're using it for grinding, which I don't know why you would be using it for grinding. Um, if you have Robux, you're probably spending those Robux on a jet seat and using that instead. But it's I really like this wheel, honestly. So I'm gonna put it with the other wheels in B tier. Next up, we have the front giant wheel. It's the same thing as the back giant wheel, except, well, it has steering. Oh, it's a... We'll anchor this real quick. There you go. It's just like the back wheel, except with steering. So, yeah, that's going in the same tier as the other one. Next up, we have the old giant wheels. I actually bought one of these before they were taken out of the shop. Um, the Initially, it doesn't seem that useful, but it actually does have one use. You see how close this is to the wheel? This makes it more compact than the other giant wheels, which have um, their block spaced out from the wheel. And as you can see, it's also thinner than that one. Um, and is it the same size? I don't believe so. No, it's slightly smaller, which actually can make it more useful in some cases. There is one problem, or two problems with this wheel, though. One, it doesn't look that good. I feel like it would have looked better if these spokes were actually all the way through, like it's missing a spoke here. And if they were colored, it would look better. You can't color it yourself because it just does the whole wheel. But, and it also doesn't have as much friction as the other wheels, so it's not as grippy on the ground. So, because of those problems, I am going to put it below in C tier. Now, next up, we have the I-beam. The I-beam is a decoration block. It's a steel I-beam. Um, I've I don't think I've ever seen anyone use this before because, well, how often do you need these steel beams? Maybe it would look good if you had like a construction site build. You know, you slap some beams down in your construction site to make it look nice or whatever. But in reality, there's no practical use for it. Um, it only has 4 strength, so you could potentially use it as armor. Um, you could use it as like a car bumper possibly if you don't feel like designing a whole car bumper. Just slap some of these down. Um, but it doesn't really have that much use as a decoration block. I'm gonna put it in E tier. And I gotta adjust the settings again. Right there. Now next up here is the ice block. And this block is what you expect. It's a block of ice that is slippery. I believe, no, your character does not slide on it, but other things will. Like for example, I place this barrel of TNT on here, I try and push it around, see it'll just slide around. Now once I push it off of here, it's not going to want to go anywhere. It flipped over from the friction, see? So yeah, there's not really much of a practical use for this. You could possibly make like a racing course, and you have like a slippery zone on the racing course, so it could be used for that. But it's honestly really hard to make a racing course because you have to have it all in sections and then assemble the sections afterwards. But overall, it's ice, you know. Um, I'd say it's a solid D tier. Next up, we have the regular jetpack right here. Tempted to save nothing. I wasn't trying to save anything. Anyways, it does its job as a jetpack. Um, just like the Easter jetpack that I showed earlier, I'm pretty certain it has the same bug where when it runs out of fuel, it'll just keep working anyways. Yeah, see, it's still going even though it's at zero fuel. So, yeah. Um, I like the design of this jetpack though. It looks better than the Easter one. The Easter one is just kind of some colorful cylinders. This one actually has like some wings on it, and they're kind of like not just cylinder shapes. Like it's some cool looking thrusters down here. Oh, you can see right through them apparently. I was not aware of that. Um, but yeah, it does its job as a jetpack. I'm gonna put it above the Easter one in B tier. Next up is the jet turbine right here. And what it does is it works kind of like a thruster, except it it always turns in exactly the direction that you face it in. As you see here, whenever we turn, it just goes straight in that direction. It doesn't glide or anything. This block is really useful for making, you know, your own jets and planes and stuff. And it's also useful for grinders when you need to slow down, because if you're going really fast from a thruster or something, let's put that right here, bind it to E. See, now that we're going really fast, we just hit the jet turbine and it slows us down. So it's useful for that as well. And we're back at our base. So yeah, this block is pretty good. I'm gonna put it in a solid B tier. I did not mean to type an SA. It keeps on automatically selecting that every time I go back to the list. Next up is the lamp. Now this is the strongest lighting block in the game, and it can be colored. Like say I want some red light, and well, you can't really tell. I think if I grab some plastic, I turn the plastic white, maybe. Well, what if I turn it gray? Maybe you can see the red light. No, I don't think you can. I think all you can do is control the brightness with this. So you can make it brighter or darker by adjusting how white or gray it is. Um, but yeah, it makes a pretty good lighting block. It's good for like car headlights if you don't feel like using a bunch of light bulbs. So I'm going to put this in B tier. Next up is what is it called? The large treasure. Um, this is a block that you get for completing, not completing, for finding a treasure in like the stages, like the I believe the medieval stage when you fight all the people there, and you can click on it to open it, and it does this little animation, and then I believe it'll close it on its own. Do I have to click on it? Yeah, you click on it to close it. So this this treasure though, the, these stupid wings on the sides make it hard to fit in areas of your builds, like if you want it as a decoration. So I guess you could use it as like a what do you call those things that people put like on the hood of their car? One of those little statue things. You use it as that, I guess. But as for having any practical uses, it just doesn't. F tier. Next up is the laser turret, which is exclusive to people who buy a certain toy, I think. Um, since I don't have this block and I can't test it, we are putting it in question mark tier. Now, next up is the legendary chest block, which I actually have one somehow. Um, Now, to get this block, you need to open legendary chests, and you only have a 0.1% chance of getting it when you open the chest. If I do some quick math, so that's 1,000 chests I had to open to get one, and at a 405 price tag for each chest, that's 405,000 gold that you had to spend on legendary chests to get one at the chances that you have there. I did not spend that much, I think. I got it out of luck earlier on. I think I only spent maybe around 100,000 on these chests. So I'm surprised that I have one. So because of how rare it is, I am going to be putting this one in A tier. Now next up is our old friend, the lever. Like I've shown with the other levers and switches, you can use this to activate blocks. It sends out a pulse every time you switch it. So it'll like activate that note block every time you throw the switch. Or like with this piston, it'll push the piston and then it'll pull the piston. So yeah, it does its job as a lever. There's not much else to say about it. But since it's not as pretty as the other blocks, I'm going to put it below the big switch in C tier. Next up is the Life Preserver, which is a really old block that I do not have any of. So this one is going in question mark tier. Next up is the light bulb. Find that here. And the light bulb is exactly what you think it does. It's a light bulb. Now, my problem with this is how weak it is. Look at this tiny little area that it lights up. You can't even light up a closet with this thing. I believe the torch, even the torch is stronger than this light bulb. Yeah, the torch is stronger. The candle is way stronger. The lamp is extremely stronger. Um, though something that I do see people do, like with car headlights, is they will take a bunch of these light bulbs and they will put them all out in front of their car, something like this. And then they have kind of a pattern that goes out in front of the car. So yeah, you can make lighting with multiple light bulbs. Like if I turn the transparency off, now you see we got the light, but we don't actually see the bulbs. So these can be made into some pretty useful things. So I'm not going to put it up here with the other lighting blocks since it's so weak. So it's going down here in C tier. Now next up is the locked door. Now this door is a door that only you can open, the owner of the blocks. Other people cannot activate the door, um, which makes it useful if you want to keep annoying little noobs out of your boat. And it also has another feature where if you put a button or a switch or something, you can control it with those. So you can make a button somewhere and make like some kind of escape room for people to play. And you can also activate it with a chair, of course. I believe the default key is F. Yeah, and it's a toggle. So you can open doors for people remotely with that. So it also has more durability than the regular door at 5 instead of 4. It's not a big increase, but it's something. So we're putting this up here above the wooden door in B tier. Now next up is the magnet, which is probably the buggiest block in this game. The magnet is used to grab blocks and hold them still. And when you deactivate the magnet, it launches them really far, like kind of ridiculously far. Like, whose idea was it to say, oh yeah, let's make the magnet throw things? But anyways, I'm sure you've heard of a magnet grinder before, and if you haven't, I'll show you one right here. This is what you can make with the magnet. It has a hole that the magnet pulls on, and you'll see you can make flying glitches with this, which slowly speed up over time. Now I use this grinder pretty much whenever I need more gold because it's pretty reliable and it's steady and it's fast. Um, there are more reliable grinders out there. I made this better than it usually is. See, we got to the end pretty easily. But yeah, I'd say this block is, it's a hard decision. I'd say this is a C tier. Would have been better if it was less buggy. Now, back over here, it's got to finish flying back home. There we go. Next up, we are looking at the marble block. Now, this is a material block with a texture that I don't really use at all, ever. I believe it's the same as the obsidian, but the lines are white in the obsidian instead of black. So, yeah, it's basically the opposite of obsidian. It's the same weight as it, but it has 6 strength instead of 8. So, yeah, the texture, not really good for building. So, this one, I'm going to put in E tier. Next up, we have the marble rod. Just like I discussed with the other rods, this one's apparently darker than its block counterpart. Yeah, you cannot scale it. It has the same durability, and yeah, it's just not useful. F tier. Next up is the mast, I believe it's called. Yep. And this is a block that you can use to decorate ships, I guess. It's got that classic Roblox kind of look to it. Um, what I never really see anyone use this except for like people who are using it as armor on their early game boats. Um, you can actually, you grab a jetpack, you can actually stand inside of here, um, if you want to. Like, or if you wanted, you could place a seat up here. Um, apparently it places on top of there. But if I move it, it should get itself stuck. And yeah, so this block, I feel like it I feel like it deserves better than the flag. So we're gonna put it above that in E tier. Still not great, but better than F. Next up is the Master Boater trophy, which I do not have because I have not participated in any building competitions yet. Yet. Um, so yeah, this one is going in the question mark tier. Now, next up is what I think is called a big treasure. Where is it? Yeah, no, medium treasure. It's got a little crown on it. The diamond lock. Does the little opening thing. And you can close it. I like this one a lot better. It doesn't take up as much space as this stupid one with wings. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna put this above that. Where did I put it? I'm gonna put this up in D tier. And I gotta rescale this again. Just a moment. Okay. Now, next up is the Mega Thruster. It was the precursor to the Ultra Thruster. Um, it was basically right in between the Ultra Thruster and the regular Thruster. Um, you can't buy it anymore, so I can't show this one sadly. So this is going in question marks here. Next up is the Metal Block, and this is just what it sounds like. It is a block of metal. Um, it barely has any texture. You have to come up really close to see the scratches on it, which makes it good for when you don't have plastic if you want something that looks nice and smooth. Um, you can paint it, of course. You can paint any block, and it's really heavy. It's one of those heavier blocks, which can be bad in some scenarios, but when you want to weigh something down, like a car or something, and you put these blocks on the bottom of it, it makes it actually more useful than it seems. So this block, um, durability is kind of low. It's only got 4 strength, so I'm gonna put it in D tier. Now, next up is the metal rod. Now, just like we discussed with the other rods, it's just a counterpart of the block that can't be scaled. It's a completely different color though. It's kind of strange. Um, this one though, I have seen people use sometimes as a ladder. They'll do this with it and make a custom ladder. So this is actually slightly better than the other rods, I guess. So I assume we're gonna just put this in E tier instead of F tier. Now next up is the minigun right here. It's a lot like the cannon, and what you do is you click on it and you click somewhere, and it'll shoot a bunch of bullets in that area. Or not bullets, but yellow lines, I suppose. Just like the cannon, you can turn the aim off, and it has a much longer cooldown time, so we'll just place another one. You turn off the aiming so that you can use it with like a cannon turret, and it'll just shoot in that one direction that you pointed in. Um, I feel like it's less useful in the cannon because it doesn't do explosions, but it does hit things instantly, so I suppose we can put it in the same tier as the cannon. A tier? No, not A tier. I'll put it in B tier. Next up is the mounted bow. This is a PvP item that you use and you click somewhere and it'll shoot there. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to aim like trajectory, you don't have to aim upwards to try and hit something far away. Because you'll see you just have to click on the block or whatever you're aiming at, and it'll do the trajectory on its own. Oh look, it went through the block. Interesting. But yeah, um, it doesn't do that much damage, but it's a good ranged weapon since you can spam it. See, like that. But other than that, it does its job as a PvP weapon. I'd say it's a C tier. And next up is the dual candy cane mounted swords thing. Um, I do not have any of these, so we are putting this in question marks here. Now, next up is the mounted cannon. And this is another PvP block. And when you use it, you click somewhere, and it shoots a cannonball there as a mobile cannon. I find this to be more useful than the other things, and I believe there's a glitch where if you use it with the blue candy, I think it flings you farther. Yeah, so you can actually fling yourself around with this. Let's see if I can see if I can launch myself all the way to Black's area. Alright, ready for liftoff. Oh, hey, we made it. Well, that's fun. Anyways, I'd say that this can go above the bow. I'm putting it in A tier. Now, next up, let's fling ourselves back over here. Next up is the mounted flintlock. Now this is another PvP weapon that shoots a little bullet at the other players. I forgot, I gotta switch my size again. Now you see, you shoot bullets at people. It doesn't shoot very fast, but the thing with this weapon is that it insta-kills people, which makes it, in my opinion, better than the bow. So this one I'm going to put in B tier, between it and the cannon. Next up is the mounted sword. My thing wasn't responding for a moment. Mounted knight sword, sorry. My inventory is actually full now. And this is another PvP weapon that you just go and swing at people. I must say, I kind of like the animations of this. It's not the cleanest, but there's some pretty good swipes, you gotta admit. It does do a good amount of damage when you spam it. So I'm gonna put this one in B tier as well. Now, next up is the mounted swords, plural. Um, it's it not as clean, definitely not as clean of an animation as the knight sword, and I believe it attacks slower as well. Yeah, that one we can just keep using. This one, after we use it twice, it slows down for a moment. So, yeah, this is gonna go below the knight sword in C tier. Actually, I'm putting this in D tier. I just don't like it. Now, next up is the mounted wizard staff. And this, you just click somewhere, and it makes a little explosion there. It's good for when your PvP opponent is moving really fast, because this thing moves pretty fast too. And it's lets you spam it pretty fast. It used to be a lot slower. Like it was completely different before. It would just send out a bunch of sparks in random directions. But now it's more like a gun. So yeah. This one I'd say this deserves a B tier. Now next up is the music note block. I can find it. Here it is. Like you'd expect, you can hit it with a switch, and it makes a note. And I believe, yeah, with this tool, you can change the key to something higher or lower. My only problem with it, though, is that you can't change the instrument, so if you're trying to make a song, you're only going to be able to play with this one instrument. And I believe if you make a bunch of them go at the same time, I believe that they start to cancel out. I'll show you what I mean. Let him cook. You'll see when I flick this. Okay, so they did all play. I thought it was going to cancel out each other, like when it plays multiple notes. I know when you do a bunch of notes at once like this, it cancels some of them out, but yeah. I never really tried messing around with this block because it just takes a whole ton of effort to try and make a song, and there's no really other use for it. So I'm gonna put this one in D tier. Now next up is the mystery block or mystery box. Um, this is a reward for a quest that when you click on it, it'll start doing weird things. Like, we'll see what it does first. Some blocks around for it to mess with. It can turn you into a zombie. Yay, now I'm slow and I make growling noises. Hello? Yeah, it'll make a balloon and it'll try to fly away. Right now it's stuck to the ground, so it's not going to do that, but it can also like turn these blocks into wood or gold. They're already wood, so it's not going to change there, but yeah, the mystery box, it's just kind of a fun thing to mess around. Oh god. But yeah, it does that too. So yeah, that's a thing. There's no real practical use for it. But it's fun to mess around with, so I'll put it in E tier at least. Now, next up is the neon block. Now, this block, it glows, as you see here. Um, it doesn't actually emit any light around it. It just makes this little glowing aurora. Um, it's good for making signs. Like, if I want to make like a giant E out of this glowing neon, I can if I want. E. You can paint it. Brighter colors glow more, while darker colors might not even glow at all. I think it'd be kind of cool if it made like a black glow around it. That'd be pretty neat. Gray, still not making anything. How about this gray? Yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can make it like blue if you want. Do all different things with it. I'd say it's pretty good, like if you want to make car headlights. Like we'll make a little mock-up right here. We'll just say that this is a car. You really got to stretch your imagination. And that's the headlight. You get a little bit of glow around it. So I'd say this block has its uses. I'll stick it in B tier. And now I gotta rescale the list again. Okay. Next up is the obsidian block. Now this is the second strongest block, or second strongest material block in the game, right behind the gold block that we covered earlier, which has 9. The obsidian has 8. And it has this texture on it. It doesn't look that great when you paint, even when you paint it different colors. Um, yeah, it's I'd say white kind of looks all right, but it just kind of looks like a granite countertop, honestly. Um, but I use this block all the time just because it's durable and it's kind of lightweight. Gold is actually lighter, but I have more obsidian than gold, as you can see. Um, but yeah, this block is pretty useful. I think that it deserves a solid A tier. Next up is the orange candy. And this candy, what it does is it makes you hyper, just like a little child who ate too much Halloween candy. You run faster than normal with it, and I actually use this candy a lot. Like, if I have a build that's all the way over here for some reason, and I don't want to just walk there, you can either go and place two portals to quickly get over there, or you can grab an orange candy and just run there pretty quick. So yeah, um, this block is pretty useful. I'd say it deserves a B tier. Next up is the parachute block. And this block, originally I thought you would wear it, but it's actually a material, or not a material, it's a uh, ability block that you'll use with other blocks. So say we have this here, and I want to make this fall slowly. We can put a parachute on it, and I'll activate it with a switch, and then we'll unanchor it, and that'll make things fall slower. Now, I feel like this block would be more useful if it weren't for the fact that it's really weak. You see, if we use it with a metal cube, for example, we'll just pretend that this is a heavy boat. You'll see when we activate it and we let it fall, it falls straight to the ground. Now, you can scale these to make them larger, and I bought a whole bunch of them thinking that I would be able to make things fall slower. But here's the problem when you do that. You see how big the parachute is? When you select this and unanchor it, the length of the parachute's ropes make the thing just fall through it. Anyways, it makes it useless. I think maybe if I were to bring it really high up, this might be able to slow down the metal block. So we're gonna try that. Just gonna shove this ridiculously high up, like that. And now we'll unanchor it. Yeah, still, you see, even though the parachute is the size of Great Britain, it's still not slowing down the metal block at all. So this this block is disappointing. E tier. Next up is the pilot seat. And this is arguably the most useful block in the game. And the reason this is so is because it works just like a car seat. You can keybind things to it. Like I can keybind these two pistons. I'll bind this one to T and G. You see, you can control things like I can press W and S to move that piston, T and G to move this piston. But the real feature is that you can control the seat. And this opens up hundreds of possibilities. Like for example, something you'll see people do is they'll make a giant cross with these, place a pilot seat, move it a little bit, and then you have a really easy grinder. Let me just get in the seat real quick. And what you see here is that you can literally just walk forwards with this. And that's just one of the examples of grinders you could make with this. You probably saw earlier in the video, if you were watching the whole thing, that I use that magnet glitch with the pilot seat. You could also use jets with the pilot seat, thrusters with the pilot seat. There's all sorts of things you can do with this thing. So this seat, absolutely going in S tier. Next up is the pine tree. This is um, it's a pine tree. Yeah, you could paint it. Snowy pine tree. Yeah, that's all I have to say about this. D tier. Next up is the pink candy. Now this pink candy here, it's like the orange candy, except on steroids. Because not only does it make you run fast, but it makes you jump like Michael Jordan. And this candy lets you jump over this wall here, so you can go and look at what other people are doing. Like, hey, the hell are you doing, brother? It's making some kind of spike cannon or something? I have no clue. Are those balloons? No, these aren't balloons. I have no idea. But yeah, um, this is also used in some grinders to make you move faster in them. Like if you're using the butter glitch, I mean the glue glitch. Sorry, I'm used to calling it butter. You could move faster with that, I suppose. There's also this thing called the firework glitch a long time ago, where you would basically, uh, you'd be standing on this pole, climbing on this pole, and you would jump, but you would be attached to the pole still with a firework or something, so you would move the pole with you, which made it go faster. So yeah, this candy is gonna go in A tier, right above the orange candy. Now, next up is the piston. Now, this is a mechanical block that lets you move things apart. And I don't use it very often because I use servos as pistons mostly. Hard to explain what I mean by that, but something that you can do with it is you can make like custom doors, for example, like right here. If I were to place the piston, unanchor it, push it out, take the block down, unanchor this, and then you have a custom door. And it's not the only thing that's useful for. You can make things like piston servos. I'll show you a quick demonstration of that here, in which you put a hinge, a block, and then another hinge down here, place another hinge, then you connect these two hinges together with a piston, and we're going to turn the length down a bit. And you'll see what this does is it bugs out apparently. But what it's supposed to do is it lets you move, you can turn a servo with a piston to make some pretty useful mechanisms. And there's all sorts of other things that you can do with this. So this would go in S tier, but it has some limitations like the length and the speed. And it also bugs out a lot for me, so it's actually just going to go in A tier. Now, next up is the plastic block. Now, this block is kind of mysterious. You see, it weighs very little, but I'm not sure. No one is really sure. Does it weigh nothing at all? I'll show you what I mean. We're going to move this up a bit. Place a suspension below it. And then we're just going to scale this huge. Like, all of my plastic blocks kind of huge. And then we are going to turn anchor off and it barely budges. In fact, this spring might just be going down from its own weight. Yeah, this spring is just going down from its own weight. It's not the plastic weighing it down there. One wood block is heavier than all of this plastic. It's, I don't really know. Is it zero weight? What do you guys think? Tell me in the comments. But this makes it really useful if you want to build like a fancy car or something that's not top heavy. You build the entire top out of plastic and the bottom half out of metal, and that keeps it a low center of gravity, which makes it not flip over. Plastic also has another use in that it has no texture at all, which makes it a solid, clean block for painting and making solid colors when you need it. Like, even when you look at it from this corner here, you can't even tell that it's different. So yeah, that's the plastic block. I'd say this one is another S tier. Next up is Plushie 1. This is a cute little plushie of, oh, I can't remember his name. I think it's like Chill Thrill or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's not really any good use for this. You could put it, if you have like a house or something, you could put it in a bed or something. Um, maybe on some shelves as like a little nice decoration thing. But as for actual uses, it has none. So we're going in E tier. Next up is Plushie 2. Just like Plushie 1, it's another one of the developers of Build a Boat for Treasure, I believe. Um, this one, they're kind of similar. You know, they got the same head tilt. They got similar hats. This one's waving though, and it's got a cute little wink. So honestly, I like this second one better. But I don't think that really earns it a D tier. It's still an E. Next up is Plushie 3. This one is I know who this is. This is Fabby the Duck, who is a Build a Boat for Treasure YouTuber a long time ago. He stopped uploading to his channel 3 years ago. I was disappointed. Um, and yeah, this one takes up more space than the others. It's also kind of cute. But yeah, there's not really much to say about it. E tier. Next up is Plushie 4. This one is Zeg, who I'm not sure. I think he was one of the developers. Is he in the credits? Oh, Zeg, right here. Special thanks for translating the game to Polish. So yeah, Zeg here translated the game to Polish, apparently. Um, but like the other plushies, there's not really much use for it, except for as a decoration, like on a shelf or a bed. So it's gonna go with all the others in E tier. Now, next up here is the portal. Now, this block has a multitude of uses. What it's most commonly used for is AFK farms. I'm sure you've seen them before, where you have this spinning pole and this thing that you put over the end, and this thing that transports you through around the place. What this does is you anchor it while it's flying, and then when you get up, it pushes you forwards automatically, as you see there. So it's used for AFK farms all the time, but it can be used for other things too. Like if you need to get to the other side of your plot quickly, you can do that. Or, like let's say you have a boat somewhere out on the river, you can attach a portal to the wall over here, and with this attached to the wall, you can teleport to your boat. Like if you die, you can get back on your boat and continue your run. Um, It also is useful, like if you need to go under the worlds to build something down here, you can make a little platform and then put a portal on top of it. And now you can go under the worlds to work on stuff down here. So yeah, this block is really useful. I'd say, um, A tier. Now I gotta adjust this thing again, so give me a moment. Okay. Next up is old pumpkin. Now, I do not have one of these pumpkins, so this one is going in the question mark tier. Now, next up is the new pumpkin, which I actually do have. Now, this here, it looks like a normal pumpkin until you click on it, and then it becomes a light source, putting light in front of it instead of directly around it. And yeah, I kind of like the little face on it. It's cute. Um, these are good for Halloween builds, of course. Don't think you can I don't think you can control it with a switch. Yeah, no, you can't control them with switches. I feel like you should be able to do that. That would be fun. Mhm. Um, but yeah, I'd say that this is a this is a B tier. Now, next up is the purple candy. It's like the pink and orange candy, except instead of making you run fast, all it does is make you jump high. So I guess you could just call this Michael Jordan candy or something. I don't know. I don't really see much use for jumping high but not running fast. So I'm going to put this below the other candies in D tier. Next up is the rare chest. This this chest block you get from the rare chest in the shop. Let's see how much it would cost to get one of these. So that's 0.5% and 45 gold. So let me do the math real quick. You would have to spend about 9,000 gold on rare chests to get one of these. Um, so yeah, this is probably easy enough for most people to get. I'd say this one gets a solid D tier, right above the common chest. Next up is the red candy. I do not have a red candy, but basically it's the opposite of a blue candy. Instead of making you small, it makes you big. But since I don't have any of that, this is going in question mark tier. Now, next up is the rope block, which I'll show you here. This block is a rope, and it does rope stuff. It moves around. You can make it shorter if you push it up. See? Um, I don't really, I don't really see much of a practical use for this. It actually does have a good use for it. This match rotation setting, when it's off, it'll just dangle around like this. But when it's on, the block will snap to the same angle as this thing. So, like, if you have a block that you want to be at the same angle as something else, like, for example, if I were to do this, put a cake on myself, a block over here, put a rope between the two, and then stand up, you'll see that block of wood will always point in the same direction as me, which can be used for different things like mechanisms or mechs. So this one, I'm gonna put it right up there with the bar in A tier. Actually, it's not as useful as the bar, so I'm gonna put it in B tier. Next up is the rusted block. Um, this is a 3 strength material block, and when you paint it, the rusted spots actually stay the same color. I personally like to make it black. I kind of like the way it looks like this. But as for actually using it in a build, would you really want your build to look all rusted? Maybe if you're making something that's meant to look old, yeah, but I personally don't see any reason for that. So this block I'm going to put in E tier. Now next up is the rusted pole. Um, I don't even know where to start with this thing. Why? Why would you even want one of these? It's just the rusted block, but worse. You can't scale it. Can't do really anything with it. Yeah, it's just not good. F tier. Next up is the sand block, which here it is. I thought I didn't have any for a moment. Now this block has the same texture as the river. So if you were to paint it a specific color, I believe it's something like this, you can make it the same color as the river. Um, it also has a different sound for walking on it than most other blocks do. Like you'll hear these all have this walking sound. The sand has a sandy walking sound. So I don't really know if there's any practical use for that or not. I never really use this block, um, but I think it can take a D tier. Next up is the seat. This is the weakest chair in the game. You can sit in it. It's really low to the ground. It is useful though when you make custom seats. You can hide this inside of it. Though you can do the same thing with chairs or thrones. You can hide those inside of things as well. It's not that hard to turn the invisibility on. But the thing is, the seat has the most predictable hitbox. So that's why you'll see people use that instead. So if it weren't for it being used in things, I'd probably put it in the E tier. But the fact that it is useful for custom seating, I'm going to put it in C tier. Now, next up is the servo. This here is what we had before we had steering wheels. So what we have now is these wheels that turn back and forth. But before, we had these old wheels that didn't turn back and forth. They just went forwards and back. So we had these servos to put those wheels on, like that. But these servos have more uses than just turning wheels. They can be used for custom doors, for example, or grabbing mechanisms, or I don't know, excavator arms, all sorts of things. Oh, and that guy over there is dead. That's funny. Anyways, yeah, this servo is pretty good for mechanisms. It is really janky though. Like it'll freak out when you use it. Like when something is too heavy for it, it'll flip back and forth. That's why I prefer to use piston servos. So this one is going to go in D tier. Next up is the shield generator. Now this block, I believe, yeah, has 20 strength, and this shield will take all those hits. Now, what you can do with it is you can actually put multiple together. You see that little electric thing connecting them. That means those shields are connected, and they actually make a bigger bubble than one shield, as you see here. But the problem with this is, with a bigger shield, you'll be hitting more rocks. And when you're hitting more rocks, you need more durability. So then you add another shield. And now your shield is even bigger. So you need to add another shield. And it's just, eventually you'll just have so many shields that you'll cover up the whole entire river, I think. And see here. Yeah, that's a pretty big shield. Um, I've tried before, even with this many shields, you can't get through the entire river without them breaking, sadly. Um, it looks like it broke into multiple shields, but that's fine. This block, I feel like it could be more useful. I don't see people use it very often. Um, I would put it in A tier if it weren't for it getting bigger, but since it gets bigger, I'm going to put it in B tier. Why is this? Next up is the sign. Now, this block was requested so much. People would not stop requesting this block until it was finally added. And you can type hello world or whatever you want in here. And the sign itself isn't all that pretty, but you can make the sign transparent and put your own backdrop behind it. Like that. Oop, that was a little too far there. Just like that. Or you can put text on like the side of something without a sign. So yeah, this block is an A tier. Next up is the regular treasure chest, I believe it's called. We'll figure that out in a second. Small treasure, okay. And it's got a neat little star lock. And when you open it, you get that little animation, and you can close it. Um, yeah, this makes a good decoration. Like if you have a treasure room, you can have a bunch of these sitting around on shelves or something. Um, you can gain a lot more of these than you can of the other ones because they're more common. I 22. I honestly have no idea how I got 22 of these. I think there was like a glitch once where everything reset and you could get them again. But yeah, um, this one I'm gonna put with the D tier. Next up is the smooth wood block. It's just like the wood block, which we haven't gone over yet, but it's got a different texture. It's the same weight, same durability, just a different texture. And honestly, I prefer the other wood texture. This makes a good, like, if you wanted a wood floor or something, you could use this, or maybe like wood paneling on a sedan or something. Who knows? But personally, I just like the look of this wood. I think it just looks better. Um, E tier. Now, next up is the snowball cannon. I don't think I have any. Let me search it. Snow. Yeah, no, I don't have a snowball cannon. So that one is going in question mark tier. Now, next up is the soccer ball. Um, it's actually impossible to anchor this, and trust me, I've tried. Even when you turn on anchor block, it'll still move around. I think. Right? Okay, maybe not. But the moment you kick it, it becomes unanchored. And now, this block is actually, I don't know. Can you harpoon it? Yeah, when you kick it, it becomes unharpooned. Now, this block is actually useful as a flying machine. Yep, you can fly with it. It's really hard to control, though, so I would not recommend trying to get to the end like that. I'd say this is also a D tier. You guys know the drill. It's time to zoom out again. Next up is the sonic jet turbine. Now this is just like the regular jet turbine, except it's faster. Yay! How much faster? Well, double faster. Personally, I really like the little trails that it has on the sides. Makes it look a little more unique than the regular thruster. Um, it also has more fuel, so it'll last longer. And yeah, it's a jet turbine. Always overrides whatever direction you're going in the moment you point it in a new direction, which makes it good for jets and stuff. But yeah, that is the jet turbine. Sonic jet turbine, I mean. We'll put this above the regular one in A tier. Next up is the Spike Trap block. This here is a PvP block that you can use to damage other people's boats or players upon contact. Now, I don't have anyone to test this with right now, so I'm just going to hope you guys understand what I mean when I say these things. Um, Something that I see people do a lot is they'll make them spin around like this. Why is my move at 2? You can make spinny things, apparently. Throw a switch down. Yeah, now you have a spinny death weapon. Oh, it hurts even though the spikes don't hurt. Um, I personally never really use this block though, so I don't really know if it's good or not. So I'm just gonna have to stick this into question marks here. Now, next up is the spooky Halloween thruster, which I do not actually have one. So this is also gonna be going in the question marks here. Now, next up is the star block. This is a glowing decoration block that looks like a star. Um, Although, when you zoom out even slightly, the glow gets so overpowering that you can barely tell it's a star. If you zoom all the way out, it just looks like a dot. So, I think you can color it like a different color to make it. Yeah, when you color it black, you don't see the glow anymore. Or you could color it red if you want. I don't really see why you would want to make a red star, but hey, you do you. Um, I think this is going to go right above the heart block since it actually glows. Um, so yeah, that is E tier. Next up is the star balloon block. Now, I don't think I have any of these. Let me check. Yeah, I do not have any star balloons, unfortunately. So, um, these ones are going in question mark tier. Next up is the star jetpack. This was a reward for just locking in at a certain time. I think it was when the game got like 1 million views or something. And it works like the other jetpacks. It only lets you go up to a certain height, right about there. And it doesn't drain fuel while you're in your zone. But the moment you step outside of your zone, every time you press space, it'll drain some more fuel. So, I'm pretty sure this one is broken like the other ones, where when it runs out of fuel, it doesn't actually stop. I'm gonna test that right now. Hey, buddy. Bye, buddy. But yeah, that's out of fuel, and it's still working. So yeah, these are bugged. Um, I I kind of like the design, although it looks a little messy right here. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to be here. Um, I'm probably just gonna put it with the Easter Jetpack right here in C tier. Now, next up is the Steampunk Jetpack, which required you to buy like a certain toy at Walmart that I do not have, so this one is going in question mark tier. Next up is the Step, I think it's called. Yeah, the Step. Um, I guess its original use was to be like a staircase building block. So you do something like this to make a staircase out of these. Um, you can also see people making tables with them. Like you'll see stuff like this, I think. This is the ugliest table I've ever looked at, but I mean, you can make a short table, just like that. Um, it only has one durability, so you're not using this as armor or anything. I never really see anyone use this block. It's kind of just a decoration. So I'm gonna put this one in E tier. Next up, we have the stone block. And that is right here. Now, I've heard that this is one of the rarest blocks in the game because you can only get it in the common chest. And you'd have to buy a lot of common chests to get it. Yeah, it's only a 15% drop, while wood is like 25%. So, yeah. Um, as you see, I only have 730 stone blocks, while I have like 6,000 obsidian, so that just goes to show. The problem is I don't really like the texture. I mean, it would make a good pathway, but I don't build buildings. I build vehicles. Painting it doesn't really make it look good at all. I don't really see this being useful in any other colors, like blue stone. Maybe if you wanted Minecraft lapis lazuli or something. I guess brown looks all right. You could use this as like a different color of stone. But since it's really weak, um, and not easy to get. This is honestly an F tier. Next up is the stone rod. Oh, it's garbage. There's no point. There's no point even using this. You can scale a stone block, but you can't scale a stone rod. And you could even just make a stone rod out of a stone block if you scale it right, like this. So, I don't know why you would even want one of these. Automatic F tier. Next up is the suspension block. And I will show you that here with the stone block, I guess. So you place the bottom end down and the top end down, and then it acts like a spring. I don't really know what else you would expect from it. This is useful for making sliders more than actually making suspension, because if you turn the stiffness all the way down to 0, it can be used to just slide, which I can show you over here. One good use for that kind of thing. You can make like a custom working engine with these sliding springs. As you see here, it's used to make these go up and down, which let these pistons go up and down. And it can be used for other things as well, of course. So I'd say that this one earns a solid B tier. It would have been much lower if it weren't for the new settings that they added to them recently. Next up is the switch. Right here. I believe it just placed 2. No, it didn't. That was just weird. The switch works just like all the other switches and levers and buttons. You can flick it and it'll activate blocks like that, or a piston, or a wheel. Um, I like the way this one looks. It's good for making like a compact little control panel because it's smaller than all the other switches, as you'll see. Like here it is next to the lever, next to the big switch. It's the smallest of the three, and the buttons work differently. Um, they only activate things while you hold it down. Um, but what the? Okay. Anyways, yeah, that's one of my favorite switches. So I'm going to put this with the big switch in B tier. Next up is the throne. I'll place that right here. Now, I don't really like the throne. It's the strongest chair in the game. I believe it's stronger than pilot seats as well. Yeah, car seat and pilot seat are only 4, while the throne is 8. So if you want a really durable chair for whatever reason, you could use this, but it just doesn't really look that good. Um, you can paint only the seat of it, so you can't even make it a different color. Uh, if you want, you can make it invisible to make a custom chair, but it's hard to line up where the sitting actually happens because it's a bit of an odd shape. Unlike the regular seat where you can clearly see where the player sits on. But yeah, that's the throne. Um, I'd say it's gonna go below the metal chair and the wooden chair in D tier. Now, next up is the regular thruster, and what it does is it thrusts, and it can be used for multiple things, like when you're earlier on in the game and you want a little boost to get into the river faster, you could use this on your little boat. Say this is your little boat. You slap a thruster down, and then you can go zoom. I said, and then you can go zoom. Yay! Um, it has, it doesn't really have a lot of fuel though. If I put down a hinge, I can show you how much fuel it has. And that's it. That's all the thrust that you get. Um, it can be controlled with buttons or seats and stuff. So like, if I throw down a seat and I press F on it, I can toggle the thruster. What is this guy doing? Is he looking at me? What's he doing? Anyways, yeah. Um, but you'd almost always want an ultra thruster where you use a regular thruster, unless you're making like a missile system, then you might want to use regular thrusters. Um, but overall, it does its job as a thruster pretty dang well. Um, I'd say it deserves a C tier. Now, next up is what block is this? Titanium block. And this is the third strongest material block in the game, behind obsidian at 8 and gold at 9. It's at 7 durability. But honestly, I hate the texture of this thing. I just don't like the look of the diamond plating. It it doesn't really fit most builds very well. Like, would you really want a car with diamond plate on the outside? I don't think you would. But as for being a strong block, especially when you're earlier in the game, getting some of these can be game changing. I know it was for me when I was earlier in this game making smaller boats, but um since I don't really like the texture of it, I'm not going to put it up there with things like obsidian. I'm going to put it further down like in C tier. Next up is TNT right here. Now, this is kind of like dynamite, except it does not work with switches or buttons or anything. You see, I can't bind it to that. It also doesn't work with seats. Can't bind it to that either. And it doesn't blow up when it touches an enemy's boat in PvP mode. All it does is blow up when it hits a rock on the river, and then damages your boat. So I don't really see why you would ever want to use this. Maybe if you like use it in a missile to throw it at a group of rocks, maybe you could get some use out of it. But I don't really see anything that you would use this for. Um, but explosions are fun, so we'll put it in E tier. Now, next up is the torch. I will show you that right here. And this is one of the weaker lighting sources in the game. As you can see, it only does this little area here when compared to the lamp, which covers a huge area, or a candle, which covers a medium-sized area. Um, they make a decent decoration, like if you have a bit of like an older design kind of thing. But as for putting it on actual like cars or modern boats or whatever modern stuff people build nowadays, it's not that great. And since the lighting sucks, it's just not a good lighting thing. So um, honestly, this goes in F tier. Now next up is the toy block. Um, this block has the classic Roblox texture on it. These little studs. I always call them Roblox Legos. Um, it only has one durability, so it's not really useful. You only got them from a certain event. Can you buy them? I'm actually not sure. Can you? You might be able to buy them. No, you cannot buy them, so it was an event only. Um, the only reason I use them is because I have so many of them that when I don't have enough of another block for something, I just use these. But when you turn it invisible, the studs stay for some reason. So you could add it to another block if you wanted. Like you could add studs to a plastic block. I don't see the point of doing that. They're both one durability anyways. Or maybe you could add studs to a gold block. Why not? So you can do that if you want to make other blocks have studs on them. I don't really see why you would want to do that, but you can if you want. So because of that, I think that I'm going to put this in. I'm going to put this in D tier. Now, next up is the I don't even know what it's called, the treasure chest block or something. It's it's this thing here. Um, it drops like a gold bar when it gets destroyed, but um, I don't have any of these, so we can't test it. So that's going in question mark tier. Next up is the truss block, and this is a climbable block that you can use to make ladders quickly to get up into your builds. Now, you can also make your own custom ladders if you place a bunch of rods or other things in a row. You can climb those as well, but it's just so much easier to slap down some trusses. So they're not that durable though. They only have one health. So I think these deserve a C tier. Next up is the Ultra Boat Motor. Now this is a Robux boat motor that is stronger than regular motors. You'll see here, if I make a heavy metal block, it should be able to push this just fine. And we'll put down our seat. Oh, we gotta move it up. Yeah, see, it can move some heavier objects. Heavier objects than a regular boat motor, which we will test right now, just to show you. You see, that cannot move this block. So, they still are limited, though. You can't push an infinite amount of weight. Like, I'll do this here. I can't even get up on top of it. It's so tall. Yeah, you see, you cannot move things that are way too heavy. I do have 3 of them, and I'm wondering, would 3 be able to push this? Yeah, no, even 3 can't do it. Wonder if I added all of these ones. I'm just curious. Oh, okay. So this is possible to be moved. You would just need a lot more motors. Um, I, I still don't find boat motors that good to use. They're not really that fun. Um, so where did I put the other boat motor? I put it in E tier, so I'll put this in D tier. Now, next up is the Ultra Jetpack. Now, this jetpack is a lot different than the other ones. First of all, it does this flapping thing where it thrusts you upwards every time you press space, which means that you can attach like a heavy object to yourself, like this, and oh, or reattach it, please. No, come on, attach. There you go. And you see, the thrusting each time you flap is able to lift heavy objects, which you cannot do with other jetpacks because they don't do that thrusting thing. You'll see if we put a heavy object on this, it's not going to let us apparently. Are you seriously not able to put? Huh. Maybe you can't put things on that jetpack. Can you put them on this jetpack? Pretty sure you can. Really? Okay, so apparently you can't even place objects on other jetpacks. So that is a ultra jetpack only feature. It also has this feature where it goes higher than the other jetpacks. See, the other jetpacks would probably limit you right about here, but this jetpack lets you go up for an infinite amount of height. So if you're making something that's wicked tall, I don't know what you would make that's wicked tall. You can fly up there if you want to. So for all of these uses, I have to put this above all the other jetpacks in A tier. Now, next up is the Ultra Thruster. Now, this thruster is a lot like the other thruster, except it's faster. And it's faster and it has more fuel. Oh, oh, it's going crazy! Anyways, yeah, because it has more fuel, it's much more valuable as a grinding option. Like, for example, I can put a seat on this, and I can fly to the end if I want. Just like that. And with the remaining fuel, I can probably get all the way back too. Oh, okay, slightly overshot it. That's all right. We have so much extra fuel we can get back anyways. Do a barrel roll. Hello, people. But yeah, that's the ultra thruster. Um, it's pretty useful. I'd say it deserves an A tier. Ooh, I messed up my scrolling there a little bit. Okay. Next up is the I forget what it's called. The uncommon chest block. Now this is from the uncommon chest, as you may be able to guess. And let's take a look at how much it would cost to get one of these. So that's a 1% drop chance. And that means you need to be 100, you need to buy 100. So multiply 15 by 100, and that's 1,500 to get an uncommon chest block, which isn't really that bad. I'd say that this one can go with the regular chest block in E tier. Now, next up is the slope. Now, this was way before we had things like the trowel tool, which we can use to rotate things and make our own slopes. So back then we had these, um, and you would be able to make sloped edges on your boat or something. Like you could do this, I guess. Oh, that match rotation was messing me up there. And make like a little corner for your boat or whatever. Just like that. Um, Nowadays, we don't really have much use for these because we have, like I said, we have the trowel tool, but they can be useful in the fact that you can't really make you can't really make a triangle like this out of a bunch of squares. You have to make like a whole bunch of them that are just tiny little slivers of wood that go down and across. So it still has its use in theory. So I'm going to put this with the corner in E tier. Now, next up is the old wheel block. Let's delete this real quick. And this block is a wheel. It doesn't have a variant that turns, so the wheel is put directly against the block itself, making it much more compact than the back wheel, as you'll see here. That one is much taller. And because of its more simple design, it's easier to design mechanisms with. So, like, if I wanted to do something like this, it's easier to place hinges on our old wheel than it is on our new wheels. We're just going to spin this around for some reason. Yay. But yeah, that's the old wheel. Um, I'm going to put it with the other wheels in B tier. Now, next up is the window block, which is right here. Now, I personally really like this block because it fits in builds really well. You'll see here. I'll just make a little thing to go around the window. And it's kind of like glass panes in Minecraft, the way that they aren't like a whole block wide, so they kind of sit inside of the blocks. And if you want, you can paint it gray to fit in with like a metal build instead. Um, where is my hand? Okay. Well, I didn't notice that earlier. But anyways, back to the windows. Um, yeah, I really like window blocks, honestly. And I think that they deserve a B tier. Next up is the winter boat motor. Um, I'm not sure how strong they are exactly, but I know that they are a bit stronger than regular boat motors. This might be a little too big. But they can move something about this heavy, I believe. Here they are. Let's see how many boat motors it takes to move this. All right, 4. Is it anchored? I believe it's anchored to the ground. Yeah, there we go. All right, how about 3? Still move 3. How about 2? Still go with 2. Now, for the challenge, how about just 1? Yeah, even just one boat motor can move a heavier object, which just to prove my point that they are stronger than regular boat motors. Here's a regular boat motor, completely unable to move it. How about 2? Yeah, it takes about 2 regular boat motors to match the strength of a winter boat motor. So, yeah, because of that, I am going to take it, and I'm going to put it... Let's see, where's our other boat motors at? We've got the regular one down here and the Ultra up here. I'm going to put it with the Ultra in D tier. Now, next up is the winter jet turbine, which I do not actually have one. So this one is going into the question mark tier. Next up is the winter thruster, which I also do not have. So that is going in question mark tier as well. Next up is the wooden block, which is the default building material in the game that you get when you start. And personally, I really like the design of it. It's a pretty clean texture, and it's good for wood floors, it's good for wood paneling, and it's also pretty lightweight compared to most blocks. Wood and plastic are the two good blocks that you want to go to if you're looking to build something that's light. Um, Plastic is better because it's lighter, and if you want something that doesn't have a wood texture, plastic doesn't have a wood texture. But um, because it's really weak, I can't put it as high as I want to put it. So I'd say it deserves a solid C tier. Oh, this thing is getting so big. Okay, I'm just fixing the cropping now. And next up is the wooden rod. This is, just like all the other rods, basically a worse version of the wooden block. Um, yeah, you can't scale the wooden rod, and it's a different color for some reason, though if you paint them, they'll become the same color. Um, but yeah, wooden rod is just not really any use for it. I guess you could make like custom ladders if you wanted. Um, just like that, you can make a custom ladder. But since I don't see any practical use for it, other than making ladders, I'm going to put it right above F tier and E tier. And that is our tier list completed. Wait a second. No, we're missing something. Where's the titanium rods? Well, titanium rods aren't here for some reason. I don't know why they're not in this tier list, but I'm telling you, I would put them in F tier. So let me just Photoshop that real quick. And there we go. This is your final Build a Boat for Treasure block tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a good one.